Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
It's rolling.
The writing process.
Well, it took a while because actually I thought about this story like about 5-6 years ago. And then, I was like, I thought it would be funny to make a movie about like an American guy with a French girl coming to Paris, 48 hours, and it just goes really, really wrong. And then I got busy. I wrote Before Sunset with Ethan Hawke and Richard Linklater. That's why I wanted to set it in Paris, because I already had the idea of this one, and I was like, oh, I'll probably never make this one. No one will never give me money, because I had been trying for 15 years to get money for anything, and no one gives me money. No one ever gives me money, but now they give me money, so that's good. Basically, and I thought about it for a while, and then at the end of 2005, I called Adam Goldberg and I said, would you like to do this little film? At first I wanted to do it really kind of like guerrilla filmmaking, no money, shoot it really fast over New Year, 2005, 2006. And then I met this producer, Christophe Mazelier, who said, no, you need money. So I started writing the script, and be very precise so I would get money, And then I finished the script. Like, I think the last scene I wrote like a few days before the shoot or something like that. So, I was still tweaking things until the end, until basically a few days before starting shooting. So it was a long process, and it wasn't. Like everything I write, I think for it for years, and then I write it. I wrote it, actually, the screenplay itself, I wrote it really fast, like a few weeks, so.
You mentioned Adam. When you write, do you actually cast your voices, your characters in your mind?
It was actually a great chance to be able to have most of the actors in the film. I wrote it for them. The people playing my parents are my parents. They're both actors, though. And, I wouldn't have hired parents that weren't actors. The girl playing my sister, Marion's sister, Alexia Londo, is an actress I wrote it for. Manu, Alex Naon, etc. So basically, I wrote it for people I had in mind. But when I don't have the people yet, because I cast all the taxi driver later and stuff, like right before the shoot, I usually write it with people in mind, because I kind of like having those little, kind of put them in mise en scène in my head and directing them in my head and talking in my head. And basically, that's what I write, the little people talking in my head. Scary, isn't it? The little people talking in my head.
Well, the big people talking in the screen, and when I saw your parents, that granted they're actors, but are they as nuts in real life? And when there's the line, well, I am because of my mother who I am, how true is that?
Well, it is and it isn't. It is definitely inspired on who they are, because they're very funny.
Parents.
Oui. Yes, definitely my parents. I did inspire the character of Marion's parents from my parents. Not fully. My mom has never had an affair with Jim Morrison, unfortunately for her, and or maybe I don't know. Fortunately for my father, and basically, my parents are, true believer of, their ideology, which is very free. They're against cars, so they don't drive cars. They've never bought a car. They live in this kind of like they recycle since like 40 years ago. Like no one recycled 40 years ago. They've been recycling for 40 years. They have this kind of mentality. And my father is very... He loves to talk about sex. He's a bon vivant. He's always joking. So I did inspire myself on my parents. But at the same time, everything is written. So I changed a lot of things, like the dinner. What's funny is, like, for example, the lunch scene, which seems like the most natural, is actually the most written and the most there's no, everything was... It was the hardest thing to shoot, and it was not the fun one to shoot. It was actually very hard. So what seems very natural sometimes is actually the opposite. It was totally created and fake, and just like movies. That's what movies are about, making something fake into something real. So anyway.
It took you about 20 years to finally make it as a film director. Do you remember the feelings you had inside your mind when you first heard, the word action?
Well, I did hear the word action when I directed short films before, so it wasn't the first time. I did also a kind of a feature, but an experimental one that was a very collaborative movie that I did with Emily Wagner and her brother Andrew Wagner. But but it was the first time people were actually giving me real money for a feature. But it took me a long time. But at the same time, between the time where I wrote my first script when I was 16 to the time where I directed this film when I was 36, I did write a lot, and I wrote a lot of screenplays. And I also learned how to write, because I believe to write, I mean, I'm not saying I'm a great writer or whatever, but what I know is that to write something okay, you have to write for a long time. Because the more you write, the more you know how to write. I mean, you don't learn to write. You just have to write until it gets somewhere.
When you find yourself directing Julie, what was the hardest and what is the most maybe fulfilling for you, acting or directing?
When I was directing myself, I would say action to myself, which would make a few people laugh on the set. Action! And then I would do my scene. But basically, I always say it's easier to direct yourself than an actor who's a pain in the ass. And it's probably less time wasted than someone who's like difficult or moody or, I didn't have that on this film, but it can be really, really difficult to direct some actors. And somehow when you direct yourself, it's hard because you need the distance. But at the same time, I'm pretty good at dissociating myself from each job I'm doing. Like when I was writing, then I went to directing. I would almost consider the writer as someone else. Then as I was directing and acting, I would almost like be another person every time, and my mind would shift or something. And then when I was editing, I didn't care about like my great performance in the scene. I would cut it out if it didn't serve the film. So I'm pretty good at making my mind a different person. It's almost like I direct in character. I always say like I write in character. Meaning like I write thinking I'm someone else. Like if I write a 16th century piece, I try to become a 16th century woman or man writing something. Like I try to write in character. I know that sounds totally crazy, but it's something that I find helps tremendously if you want to write something. If you write a war movie, try to write like if you were a soldier. I always try. So it's funny, my approach to writing scripts is almost like method acting, but method writing. It sounds totally nuts, I know, but that's the way I approach things,
And you also write in music. I mean, do you listen to music as you write? Because music is very important, and you did the music on this film as well.
Yeah, for the music, I composed the music for the score, all the jealousy theme, the childhood, the father, at the end, the little piece of piano and stuff. So I wrote quite, but it wasn't much music in the film, like score, so it was easy to handle. And I wrote it during editing. As I was editing, I would take breaks for lunch or something, and then I would write a piece for the film and then put it and see if it worked, because I can write music very fast. For now, I don't know, maybe it's going to stop one day, but I write music quickly, but then you have to make it better, obviously, but like the main theme. And so I could test it like right away in the editing room. To be able to do both is very quick, it's fun. And I enjoy writing music. I had to put a lot of songs in the film that I didn't write, the songs, so I had to listen to a lot of albums. But it came quite organically. And also my boyfriend is a music supervisor, and he told me, what about this song? This is nice. He made me listen to a few songs. So he was helpful, he's always helpful because he's always great advice, but he never really imposes his vision on anything because he's not like that. He's too respectful to do that. But he would advise me like the song from Brigitte Fontaine. But I picked like the song from like Vian and all the songs at the party. But then he was helpful in like, you should put a rap there. And I was like, okay, I'll look for a rap. He was good at like thinking that way, but he's been doing that for like 15 years or something.
So in fact, this is not autobiographical at all, your film.
What do you mean? My boyfriend is the opposite.
Certainly not Adam Goldberg.
No, he's certainly not a neurotic.
Exactly. Tell us about this neurotic man and how the couple functions. Tell us about the couple and your characters and the man.
Yeah, my boyfriend is everything but neurotic, but I have had many neurotic men in my life. And in a way, I am neurotic myself. Jack has maybe more of me, unfortunately, than Marion, And, but in a way, I have a lot of affection for neurotic people. I mean, I'd rather be with neurotics, because I feel they're sometimes sensitive people and insecure people and stuff, than people that have no neuroses, but they're kind of like rude and cold, and so I don't know. Neurosis doesn't bother me so much. When it becomes really bad, it can be very draining. But I can handle neurotic people. Most of my girlfriends are neurotic, and I love them. Like I consider neurosis like I'm moved by neurosis. I can be moved when neurotic people are not psychotic at the same time. Some people can be psychotic too and neurotic. That's really annoying. So they don't empathize with you, but they're neurotic on top of it. That's the worst kind. But and I've had that too. But usually I like neurotic people. I just think they're nice. Plus I'm neurotic, so obviously I like neurotic people. Otherwise I'd be hating myself. Which I do sometimes too. But.
What would you say their relationship is based on? Where do you feel their chemistry is based on? Who is Marion in a way to him and to her?
Their relationship is based in, in a way there's love between them. And you can't really explain what love is. It's a mix of attraction, a mix of enjoying being with each other at times, not always, obviously, and things like that. Their relationship is at a point where, they are both scared of intimacy in a way. He protects himself by taking photos all the time and avoiding being in the moment, and even though she's the photographer, and she's taking herself away from intimacy by, in a way, keeping other men maybe on the burner slightly. She's not even that much keeping them on the burner, but just slightly, so that she wouldn't invest herself 100% by letting go of her past entirely. So I think in the film, they're at this point in life where they have to make the decision to move one step forward, to really be fully intimate with one another, and to let go of certain fears that people have of totally opening themselves to someone else,
How much of yourself did you put in your character, not only in her personality, but also in the sort of culture shock that maybe you feel when living in America, you arrive in Paris, or the cliches and anti-cliche you put in there? How much of it is you, of your experience, of your inner self?
Well, it is not an autobiographical film, because I have never brought a boyfriend to Paris and it went wrong for 48 hours. I've never brought an American boyfriend to Paris. I mean, I've never had that experience actually the way it is in the film. I did inspire myself on things I've experienced or I've seen, I've witnessed. I am French, I live in America, I come back here, I take taxi. I've had bad experience in taxi driver, like every person that ever came to Paris and speak fluent French with the taxi driver. Because it seems like, it's not like in New York where you have like the glass, or London. It's like this direct, constant communication. Like the guy will make comments listening to the radio that, he hates this and he hates that, blah, blah, blah. So you start arguing with him often, for me at least. So, and then, there is a little bit of me. Obviously, I based it on certain things. I mean, maybe the closest there is to me is maybe the end voiceover about, to me it's very important to commit to someone. And even though it's a comedy and it's all about joking, the entire film, the end is a bit more emotional, just because it's about moving to the next level of making this commitment to someone you love and giving yourself, even though things are difficult. It's difficult to be in a relationship. I mean, everyone knows that. It's not easy. It's not like a piece of cake. It's maybe a piece of cake the first year or something, but then it gets complicated, especially with two strong personalities. Like, Marion and Jack are pretty strong and, argumentative, and so it's not easy, but it's to show that if love is there, love is the most important thing,
So you would forgive yourself for lying to a man? You're a liar?
I'm not a liar, but I would definitely do what Marion did, which is like, the guy is so nervous that what is the point to tell him that another ex-boyfriend is at the party? He's going to have a nervous breakdown. So in a way, she's not really lying. She's just avoiding him trouble. But because it's discovered, the paranoia that he already has gets blown out of proportion.
Would you call this film a romantic comedy, or would you call it a comedy of errors? Would you also call it like a comedy full of filthy, rude, politically incorrect comments?
It's definitely rude, politically incorrect comments in the film. So I don't know if it's a romantic comedy. It is romantic in some way. It's more like post-romantic in a weird way. It's beyond romanticism. It's not the idea of romanticism that we have of the longing of someone that you can't have, blah, blah, blah. It's a romanticism that's very rooted in reality. And it's tough. Reality is tough and not very romantic, but it is romantic because in the end they decide to stay together. So I think it's a romantic comedy with a lot of political and also edgier thing within this romantic comedy. It's not a typical romantic comedy at all, so.
Well, it seems that your language is very atypical for a lady. I mean, there's pretty some talking fascist vaginas, blowjobs, God knows salami. I mean, what's this thing with you? Do you like writing rude and talking rude?
Yeah, it's rude, but it's never vulgar because I hate vulgarity. So I do have a tendency, I have a natural tendency. I mean, I talk about sex a lot in my life, and I link sex to politics all the time, and commentary and jokes, and to me it really came out naturally to write all those things, and they're very dirty, but I have a bit of a dirty mind. What can I say? I'm not a bad person for that, but I do think about sex quite a lot, but in a good way, not in a bad way. I'm not a pervert, I just love making jokes in my head, and it's never dirty, like in a dirty sense. I'm not a dirty person, but I do think about funny sex jokes, and sex commentary makes me, stupid sex stuff, all the time in my head, Just like the picture of the man with a balloon tied around his penis, it's the kind of thing I imagine in my head. You see what I mean?
I see what you mean. However, are there things that when your producers or your distributors saw, or in Berlin, whatever, that they wanted to actually maybe take out of your film because of some political commentary?
Not the political against Americans. That was the French. People were a bit. Only the French had a problem with some criticism of the French political thing. So only the French were offended. A little bit, but now they're fine.
Interesting.
Yes, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we were talking earlier about, of course, you and as a director, as your first time feature film. And I know there are lots of references in your film, some funny ones, your cat, etc. Would you care to explain how many references you sort of stole into your movie?
There's tons of them, but it's not. But the references. Yeah, but there's many references in the film. For example, the character of Jack is looking at M, the Fritz Lang movie, and at the end he shaves himself an M on the chest, and then the name Marion, and all those things. I mean, there's like little details about, like, I wanted for him to be kind of like feeling like he's M in the film, M meaning rejected by society and an outsider, because he is in the film. So there's all those little references. At the beginning of the film, I say we went on a journey to Italy, like the title of a movie with a happy ending. It's a reference to Voyage en Italie, which is actually about a couple fighting the whole film until they reunite at the end. So there is tons of reference like this, but I make them. I don't like reference that are heavy. I call the cat Jean-Luc because of Jean-Luc Godard, because I thought, it would be funny if like a very New York kind of trendy couple loves Jean-Luc Godard so much that they call their cat Jean-Luc, There's details like that. It's little things. It's more saying that I love those films and I love Godard or I love Rossellini and stuff, than to say, I'm going to make a movie like that, because my movie is not at all like this film. I'm not trying to imitate Fritz Lang. I'm not trying to imitate Godard. I'm not trying to imitate Rossellini, because I can't do it. I'm not those people. I'll never be as good as them. And it's life, I don't care. I mean, it's the way it is. But I do like to have those references anyway, but they're hidden, they're not obvious, obviously.
Well, talking about something also that at the end of the film, when the voice-off sort of dies, to really, for a naked moment of truth. I mean, it's like, and she admits that forever is something that is frightening to her. Wouldn't you say, though, that it's the positive message of the film? It is that not a pessimist. Yeah, it is not a pessimist.
That forever is scary. Yeah, forever is scary, but at the same time, it's good to try it. It's good to try. It is a romantic projection to stay with someone forever is like a very difficult thing, to achieve nowadays. But the film is not negative at all. At the end, it's kind of a positive thing. It's kind of like, let's try it. I'm scared of forever, but let's live it day by day. I mean, I think love should be taken day by day. You can't make big plans in the future. I always find it really dangerous. I think you need to enjoy the moment. And the last image of the film, that's kind of like 1970s, like love stories type of movie with a freeze frame and stuff. It's very chosen to be that way because, I really wanted to have this moment where they're actually enjoying the moment together. He doesn't have his camera, they're just laughing, joking, playing. Because to me, playing is the essence of a good relationship, having fun.
And would you say that it's 20 days of shooting, right?
Yeah, it's very short.
So would you say that these 20 days of shooting sort of put you in another sort of planet from where you were before, or a professional plane? Would you say it will have an incidence on you, this particular film? Do you feel it has changed you as an actress and your perception as a director?
Well, directing a first film definitely changes you because, I feel that I love acting. It's something I love to do. My next movie that I'm directing, I'm playing the lead part again. I'm like, but I for me it's essential. I love. For me, it was a revelation to direct a movie. It was like suddenly something I've always wanted to do, and suddenly I was doing it, and I had no problem whatsoever handling it. No problem. I was so comfortable giving orders, controlling everything. It was great. No, but I had no problems. I had no fear. I mean, I had anxiety, insecurities, everyone does, but I had no real fear. I felt like I was going 100 miles, like 400 miles an hour. And it was like a high. And I can't wait to do it again. I'm doing interviews now and stuff, but the real pleasure of making movies is making them. It's like it's like a high, I have to say. And I love acting, and sometimes when I've worked with director I really admire, it was also like a high. But, sometimes, obviously, when you're acting, you act on movies necessarily that you don't love, and it's not a high, it's kind of boring. So there it was like a pure high for me to direct. I was totally like on a cloud,
So if you had, last question, if you had, as I said in the French, 2 days anywhere, with whom, what would you do, etc.?
It wouldn't be 2 days, it would be 10 days, and it would be with my boyfriend in Belle-Île, but he's not going to come because he's working. So it's not going to happen yet, but maybe we'll go somewhere else, like Hawaii or something. That's not bad.
But you are now fully in control.
In control.
Like your character.
Yeah, right. No. I am much more in control than Marion, because Marion is like kind of when I inspired myself doing this film. I know it sounds funny, but I totally inspired myself on the character of, I don't know, it sounds stupid, but I was thinking, when I was playing her, I was thinking of Jack LaMotta from Raging Bull. So I know she's totally different, but it's something I was thinking of. I don't know why I kept thinking about that while I was, sometimes when you act, you think of something, and I was thinking of that. But it's funny because it's a woman. It's like it has nothing to do with that. And she's not a boxer. She's not all that. But I just thought of it as I was acting.
So you're a boxer in reality.
No, but she's pretty tough. I mean, she's the one with the balls in the film, literally. I mean, Marion is the one with balls, She's the one attacking people when she feels it's wrong. And I mean, I reversed the dynamic, The guys are talking about sex, the women are attacking people. The film is all about a reversal of virility, in a way. Men need to tie helium balloons around their penis to lift them. The dad's talking about being fixed. The cat has been fixed. Everything I kind of reversed, because I believe it's like a post-feminism generation in a way, So raised by a feminist, there's no question that we're equal to men. There's no fight anymore. It's equal. So now I can be as virile as I want.